Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, Elise.
I just want to mention we didn't get any minutes in time for me to put it on. So when you get to that item, you can just say there's no minutes and skip to the next item.
Oh, wait, which item? I'm sorry.
For the approval of minutes.
Approval of minutes.
You didn't receive any minutes to review yet. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I have them yet.
Oh, okay. So that's number 2. So we just,
Just go to the next, say that we don't have any minutes to approve and go to the next item when you get there.
okay, awesome. Thank you.
Bringing up the agenda right now, and may have a question real quick. So I'm wondering, and maybe it's more appropriate to ask this when everybody gets here, but I'm wondering if we can move the item of the letter up to be item number 3. I know Mayor Colbert wanted to participate or at least listen in, and he has another meeting that starts at 7. So wondering if we could accommodate that.
Let's see, so that would make it, you want to bring it up to 3? Steve? Item, because that would be the first thing, because we don't have the any minutes to approve. So it would just, item number 3 is receive resource from racial equity ad hoc. Blah, blah,
Yeah, so it
blah.
would essentially be just switching 3 and 4.
Yeah, okay, committee. Does
Yeah, I'll make a
someone
motion to do
make a-
that.
A second.
Thank you. Thanks, Larry. Thank you, Bailey.
Oh, and just to let you know, Madam Chair, Nav is going to be a little late. Her daughter is auditioning for some dance thing, so that's going to take till 6:45. So she'll join us then.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone heard from Frank? Does anyone know if he's going to be here?
If not, I can text him.
Okay. So we can get started.
I think who has the power? Is that you, Elise? We need to move Alexis in as a panelist. She's in the attendees section.
Got it.
This is Heidi, everybody. I'm attending tonight, but I'm not feeling great, so I'm primarily going to be listening.
Great. Thank you, Heidi, and feel better.
Thank you.
Okay, Alexis is here. It is 6:33, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And so number 2 on the agenda, agenda item number 2, we don't have any minutes to approve. So we are going to agenda item number 3, which we just swapped with agenda item 4. So, and that would be the letter to the DA. Steve, do you know when Brian is going to sign on?
He's in the audience right now.
Yeah, he's.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know if it was going to be like last time. So, okay. So item number 4, review and approve draft statement by racial equity ad hoc committee members, myself, McElroy, and Larry Organ, regarding the May 2021 racism towards San Anselmo Mayor Brian Colbert and July anti-Semitic statement at Memorial Park. So we have the letter. I could or actually I can't. Someone would have to do a screen share to show the rest of the committee, or the rest of the committee, you've all read, have you read it? Okay, Emma, did you get a chance to read it? Okay.
Yes, I have.
Great. Okay, awesome. And then Heidi, I know you did. Okay, Bailey did. Okay, so I guess I open the floor to comments on the letter. And Steve, I know that I didn't get a chance to take a look, but I know that you took a look at it and changed some wording. Do you want to tell us what you changed?
Sure. And without having them in front of me right now, I'll go off of memory. I thought the letter was really good. I thought it was really solid. There were just a couple of things that I changed in there, both having to do with the direct ask, right? The original letter had used language about almost kind of asking her to charge Mr. Welty. And I think I want to be careful that we're not publicly trying to influence a law enforcement official into making a decision. I think that's a tricky area to be in. I think what we are well within our rights to do is to demand an update, which was promised in her May 24th press release. Because in what I did was I included some of the language directly from the district attorney's press release, and specifically that she had mentioned that the case is not closed and that they were waiting on full police reports from CMPA, and that when they had them and reviewed them, then they would make a decision as to whether or not they would charge. And then also about promising to keep our community updated. And I think all of those are important because when you look at the timeline of things here, town staff listened to the messages and alerted Brian on May 11th. Few days, shortly after, I'll say, Welty was released with no charges. At that time, I believe the mayor received an update from the DA, kind of similar that, they were still investigating. On May 23rd, so about 12 days later, the district attorney was engaged in a public forum being asked questions about, hey, when will we get an update? What's going on with this? Because there hadn't been anything since, the IJ had reported that Welty had been released. And at that point, she talked about how hate crimes are hard to prosecute. They're still waiting on information from CMPA, which I questioned, but, I don't, I take the district attorney at her word. And then miraculously, 2 days later, a press release comes out from their office, right? And now since that press release, it has been over more than 2 months and we have heard nothing. And to my knowledge, Mayor Colbert has heard nothing. And so I think it is well within our rights to ask for the update that was promised. And I think it's important that we use language that the district attorney used in her press release. And so that basically is a summation of the edits that I made to the letter. And they were, fairly minor. I didn't totally reword the thing. I probably changed about, 7% of what was in there. Like I said, I thought the letter that you and Larry did was awesome. And I just wanted to kind of make sure, tailoring us to, what the proper ask is and what, we as a committee are within our rights to do.
Yeah, I looked at that, Steve. It looks really good. And I agree with just using what she said before, because we're not accusing her of anything. We're just saying you said X, and so we're following up on that. So I think that's a really great way to approach it.
And I also thought it was important to state factually, to this point, she has not charged Mr. Welty. Because my concern here is that, as Councilmember Burke said on the last call, and I trust her opinion. She's a criminal defense attorney. She knows the criminal law realm. And, her assessment was essentially that, the DA had all the information that they had and was just kind of hoping that, this went away and people forgot about it. We in San Anselmo have not forgot about it. This committee has been talking about this, at every one of our meetings. Unfortunately, this happened right as this committee was, starting up. And so, I thought it was important to mention that she has not charged him. And I think we deserve, an answer. And again, not trying to persuade her decision in any way, just wanting to be transparent with the community, and give our community some level, and Brian and his family, most importantly, some level of closure around this. I think that's important.
No, absolutely. No, thank you so much, Steve. What happens next with this? Does the whole committee need to read it for it to be approved?
Well, I'm wondering if staff has the ability to do a screen share and bring it up so the entire committee can have a chance to read it. And because if that's what you want to go with, that's what you would be voting on this evening.
Yeah, I think that if committee members are open to that, if Elise or Dave or someone can pull it up, that would be great. Because it's just, we're dating it. It just keeps getting dated. And I think the urgency is there.
Elise, I've transformed it to a Word document from Steve's email. If you want to give me the power to share.
Emma?
Also, I'm available to read the document as well for people who are just listening in and cannot view the screen.
Wonderful.
Not sure if Elise is there.
Second, I have to talk to the meeting, sir.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, we have the interpreters and we're trying to work out the interpretation, so. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Can you give me a screen sharing access, Elise? While we're talking, I put it into a file that we can look at.
It should work now, Dave.
Thank you very much. Okay. I believe this is it. All right. It's not going to fit completely on, but I will scroll, give everybody a chance to read down to there, and then can go farther.
Emma, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So I am reading the draft of the Frigoli letter to the district attorney. It's written by Tiffany McElroy and Larry Organ. Dear District Attorney Frigoli, we're contacting you on behalf of the San Anselmo Racial Equity Ad Hoc Committee. My name is Tiffany McElroy, and I am the chair of the committee. My co-committee member, Larry Organ, and I are writing to inquire about the case of the racial threats against San Anselmo's Mayor, Brian Colbert, by resident Gerald Welty. The residents of our community and our committee are concerned in part because the hate crime is directed at the highest profile elected official in our town. We believe that the best way to deter such incidents is by making examples of those who engage in hate crimes. The failure...
Yeah, I missed a paragraph in your May 28th press release.
Oh,
do you see that there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am looking at a different draft.
Oh, not the one that is up right now that's being shared? Are you looking at yours?
Yes, I'm.
Oh, okay.
I'm
If you can look, can you see the one on the screen?
I can.
Okay, yeah, that's the newly revised.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
In your May 28th press release, you stated that your office had received some, but not all of the police reports regarding the investigation, and that your office would review the reports in their entirety when received and ultimately make the decision about whether or not to charge Mr. Welty. The press release also stated that this case is not closed, and that your office will continue to provide updates on the status of this case. That press release was issued more than 2 months ago, and since that date, our community has not received any further update from your office. Furthermore, to date, your office has not charged Mr. Welty. We believe that the best way to deter such incidents is by making examples of those who engage in hate crimes. The failure to swiftly and publicly address and charge such crimes merely encourages and empowers this type of behavior. Case in point, the racist and anti-Semitic act found at Memorial Park on July 26th. We would like to know what the next steps are from your office with regards to whether or not you will charge Mr. Welty. As noted on your own website, this incident appears to be a hate crime, the definition of which includes the written or verbal comments showing prejudice and, in this case, threats of violence. We recognize that your office must ensure that all elements of a crime must be met and that all alleged criminals are entitled to due process. But our community does not understand why an update has not been provided from your office since the date of your May 28th press release. We know that San Anselmo Police Department cooperated with the utmost professionalism, providing you with every piece of evidence in a timely manner. At this point, your office should have all the information needed to reach a decision regarding whether or not to charge this case. Our community deserves to know what that decision is. Can we scroll down a little bit? Thank you. We are a community that stands in solidarity against acts of hate. Our Racial Equity Committee requests that you give us and the residents of San Anselmo an update on this important matter as soon as possible. Sincerely, Tiffany McElroy, Chair of the Racial Equity Committee, and Larry Organ, member of the Racial Equity Committee.
Thank you for reading that, Emma. Okay. So everybody's gotten a chance to hear that.
So I would, I'm sorry, may I be heard? Madam
Larry,
Chair?
go for it. Mhm.
Thanks. So I like the changes, Steve. Thanks for your edits. And those edits that just came in about the Central Marin Police Authority. What there is, I would suggest, just so that we're conforming to English standards, that in the third paragraph, I think it is the one that says "we believe," where we have case in point, it should be "a case in point is," and then get rid of the comment. Otherwise, it's just a sentence fragment, so. Although very good rhetoric, so I understand why you did it, Steve, but.
I didn't do that.
That was me.
Oh, that was you. Oh, okay, well, great
I changed
rhetoric.
very
Tiffany.
little.
Yeah, okay. So, but with these edits, I guess we can move it, is that right? Move approval?
Do we
May I
have
just-
approval? Oh,
Well-
Steve?
Yeah, can I just ask about, I'm looking now because I realize oftentimes we'll use certain rhetorical phrases or commonplace, everyday language, but when you write them down, it's different. Would a case in point be the proper terminology, or is it, case in point is a, slang English term?
I think it's fine. I mean, she's a DA. She understands what we're talking about. So I think I think it gets the point across. And the general language we're trying to use is language that communicates to everyday people. I think people like a case in point. I think they like that. That would be a good example.
And the word I was looking for, which I use all the time, but couldn't remember here a minute ago, is idiom. And I think the idiom is case in point.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, but that's a sentence fragment. You can't just throw out a sentence fragment.
I'm
In a written document that you're sending to the district attorney, I think you actually have to put it in sentence form. So I certainly, as an attorney, would never do that. So, I mean, you can send it that way, but you can take my name off it if it's gonna be case in point. So I'm happy for you to do that, Steve, if you want to do that, but
I don't have a vote in this matter. I see Dave has his hand up.
I
bet
do.
he has
I,
some-
I just want to circle back to procedures and remind everybody that normally when there's a presentation of something like this, there's a chance for the committee to ask questions, and then we take
Oh.
public comment. We always have to take public comment. Then we kind of come back to this kind of discussion before we take a vote. So Tiffany, if you wouldn't mind calling for public comment, that'd be great.
Okay, is there any public comment?
I see no hands raised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
You know what? Mayor Brian just popped in. I think Elise has to, oh, there he goes. Elise did it. Mayor Brian, you can unmute yourself.
Thanks. Some of an unruly crowd you have, Madam Chair. I almost forgot about public comment. But you're on a fine meeting.
Thank
So I'd
you.
just like to thank all of you for your valuable work on this in general. And I want to acknowledge that, you know, you were, this committee was formed with a very specific mandate, which I actually think will lead to the effectiveness of this particular committee. And this letter and response to the event, which happened to me, are probably somewhat outside the wheelhouse. Ultimately, that's for the committee and your liaisons and staff to decide. But myself and my family, we certainly appreciate the time, care, and attention to which you're giving this. There are any numbers of the community that would like a response from the district attorney. And I think coming from this particular committee, it is well placed. So again, thank you for your time and attention to this and all the other endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mayor Colbert. Thank you. Okay, any further public comments?
It appears not.
Okay, all right, we'll bring it back to the committee. Any comments from the committee? Emma?
I would like to just say that I think the statement is really well written and good. And I think that it's exactly what we need to do from this committee is we need to take stands on things and show where our voice is and what we stand for here and what we're fighting for. And I would also encourage us not to get too deep into the semantics of language here. It is very important that it comes off professional and that it is read with all seriousness because it is a serious issue. But I think that the message is very clear here. And I think the writers and everyone has done a really good job.
Thank you, Emma. Steve?
Yeah, I would just say to Larry's point, because I certainly don't want him to take his name off of it. And Emma, I completely agree with what you said, but I think what if there was a better way to state, you know, a case in point? Because I think when you write out a case in point is, you lose the meaning of the idiom and it kind of becomes something else. Is there, could we say a perfect example of this is the racist and anti-Semitic, you know?
Perfect example. Let's see, we believe.
Or an example of this.
An example of this is the Racist and Anti-Semitic Act found at Memorial Park on July 26th. Example of this is. Committee members, what do you think of this?
I cry uncle. Steve beat me. So,
Okay,
I would add that it is a recent event that has happened in our community.
an example of this is the recent racist and anti-Semitic
Yeah,
act.
recent, Dave.
Yeah, an example of this is the recent racist and anti-Semitic act. Thank you, Emma, Steve, and Dave. Okay.
I
So
see
that,
Heidi's hands.
oh, I'm
raised as
sorry.
well.
Thank you, Heidi.
I think it's really important that our Racial Equity Advisory Committee takes action and speaks with a voice as to how we think our community would speak if they could. And I know that there are members of our community that very much want to understand what's going on. So I'm fully in support of acting as that voice on behalf of our community towards the DA. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Heidi. Alexis, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have something you wanted to say?
It was just about the grammar bit, a proposed solution, but it's been resolved. I think the letter is great, and appreciation to everyone who contributed.
Thank you, Alexis. Okay, anyone else have a comment? Bailey?
I just similarly want to appreciate both Tiffany and Larry for your work on the letter. I think it's really good, and I really appreciate the way that it demands action from the DA.
Thank you, Bailey. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so nope, okay, so is motion to move forward?
I think you're looking for a motion and a second from the committee.
I'll move that it's approved. The letter is approved to be sent.
I'll second.
Thank you, Larry and Bailey. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next agenda item. We
Hey,
switch.
Tiffany, I believe
Yeah.
you gotta do the poll of all of the.
Oh,
committees.
that's right. I apologize. Yes, okay. Heidi.
Yes.
Okay. Larry,
Yes.
Emma,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Nav,
Yes.
myself, yes. It's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so agenda item 4 now is receive resource from Racial Equity Ad Hoc Committee member on diversity, equity, and inclusion. This month is Larry Organ. And I think most of us know, but each month one committee member will report on something that they are reading, listening to, or attending that centers on diversity, equity, or inclusion. For example, someone may share a podcast, article, book, film, music, TV, an event, etc., something they enjoyed or found thought-provoking on a DEI topic. So Larry, what do you have for us?
So mine is a book, but it's also a movie called Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. And it is also, I've read the book and I've seen the movie, and I highly recommend it. And it really kind of fits more into the equity component of our tasks. It's a story about a guy who was fresh out of law school. Actually, it started out when he was in law school, and he went down to Georgia to help with people on death row down there. And he then, as a result of that, started in Alabama the Equal Justice Initiative. And he's been instrumental in saving the lives of many people in Alabama who were on death row, and proving that they were innocent. And there was a poignant part of the book on page 213 where they're talking, initially he was highlighting the story of a man named Walter McMillan, who had been convicted of first-degree murder and was on death row, and actually had an alibi from his family, proving that he wasn't there. And then he went through, and Stevenson went through and essentially proved that the story that the district attorney had put together was just completely false and was based on fabricated testimony. And it's a very uplifting story with respect to this Walter McMillan. Because first of all, it shows you the injustice of our judicial system and its bias against African Americans. It also is uplifting in that, of course, he gets Walter McMillan off, and because he proves it. But it's also worth reading because it shows you the difficulties in doing that. It's not enough to just have the truth on your side. It requires fortitude, it requires tenacity, and he has to keep fighting the system, which has falsely incarcerated Mr. McMillan. And it also talks about sort of the tragedy of how lives are, disturbed because of an injustice. And so anyway, this on this page that I was talking about, the story after Stevenson gets it out there, it gets picked up by 60 Minutes, and 60 Minutes interviews the district attorney. And in the interview with the district attorney, this is before, of course, McMillan gets off. He dismissed as silly the suggestion of any racial bias in the prosecution and calmly professed his complete confidence and certainty that McMillan was guilty.
Oh, wait, Larry, are you giving us the ending?
So I'm coming to the end. So finally, I'd just like to leave you with these couple words. We're all implicated when we allow corrupt the decency of a community, a state, a nation. Fear and anger can make us vindictive and abusive, unjust and unfair, until we all suffer from the absence of mercy and we condemn ourselves as much as we victimize others. So that's my recommendation. And sorry I took so long.
Not at all, not at all. Great choice. The book and the movie both are great. Okay, may I ask Alexis or Steve, this is already okay. We've already voted on this. So do we move on or do we ask for public comment on this?
I think you can take public comment. There's no action on this, but as practice, taking public comment on each item is generally a good thing.
Okay, great. Dave, is there any public comment on this item number?
There is no public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then we will move to the next agenda item. Number 5, receive update on racially restrictive covenant modification program and review and approve text to send to the community. So this is Heidi Weller and Elise Simonian have put this together. There's a text.
Yeah, I worked on text with Heidi that we could send out to the community to inform them of the racial restrictive covenant modification program. And then at the last meeting or the meeting before the last meeting, I think we had said that we would bring it to you. So I wanted to bring it to you before we send it out and see if anyone has any suggestions or comments before we go ahead to try to advertise this program. And we have started a website that has more details on how one would change their or modify their covenant. And then I started a map there with the ones that we know about, which is really, that was one thing I wanted to get your feedback on is, and I could share my screen to show you, but essentially, is it, I don't want to create any pain for anyone. And if they look at a map and see a lot of red areas where racially restrictive covenants applied to whole subdivisions if I just want to be sensitive of that and get your feedback. So right now the map is designed, and I'll pull it up. It's designed so that, let's see here. Take a second. The map has links to the, oh, here, let me start sharing. Sorry, I have a lot of screens going. Let's get the right one up. Okay, I have a lot of windows on it. Oh, here we go. This should be better. So we have the text that's similar to what we shared with you, and then more directions on how one could modify a racially restrictive covenant. And just in case anyone listening doesn't remember what that is, that's restrictions that were put, and they're usually put on deeds or recorded by the original subdividers. And sometimes they will have clauses as to what you can and can't do on the property. And in some cases in San Anselmo, they will say that only people of the Caucasian race can live in the property for a certain period of time. Some of the ones that I've seen, or just a statement that says, that says the types of people that can live there, which are really awful to have. They're not enforceable, so they're of no, if you have one on your property, it doesn't mean that people aren't welcome to live there, but it is something that we wanted to bring to people's attention, because they could record something else that says everyone's welcome to live in our town, or they could also just file a specific statement that says that they're striking that language specifically. You can't ever remove it. So this is the map. And when you click on an area like Morningside subdivision, I've posted like an example of the racially restricted covenants for the ones that where we have them. But I also want to be sensitive, and this could be really awful, I think, for some people to see. So I wanted to get some feedback as to whether or not this is a good thing that we're facing how our community developed, or should we be a little more sensitive about it?
Oh, go ahead, Emma.
I would like to speak to this because I have some thoughts as someone who has studied history and someone who knows that I've lived in places where they've had these racially restrictive housing covenants. And looking at this map now, for myself, it irks me, I guess. I'm sad. It's upsetting. And I would just like to add that what we're dealing with right now, this result that we're talking about in our Racial Equity Committee, is the process, the rundown of 200, 100 years of white supremacy and settler colonial violence, starting with genocide against Native peoples here in California and moving all the way through to the 1930s, when these racially restrictive housing covenants were, encouraged by the federal government, encouraged segregation and racism. And now today we look at our town and we ask ourselves, why is our town the way it is? Why is the makeup of our town the way it is? And I think this work is really hard. This work is really upsetting because it looks directly into the face of the monster that we must all fight against. So I just want to take the moment here to acknowledge that for those of us, for myself, I'm uncomfortable, that for those of us who might be watching later on or in the audience, this is some uncomfortable stuff. But this is exactly what needs to be happening, is we need to start addressing this and looking it in the face instead of turning our face away. So that is my input, and thank you for giving me the space to speak that input.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. I agree as well. I don't think we can hide from our history, and when we do that, I think that we all lose. And I think a lot of people didn't even know what the racial housing covenants were before 2020. And so I think that it's really important to show the maps, and it's a chance for people to get curious, to look into history, and to shift. This is what our committee is about. It's to bring to light things that are uncomfortable, but we all get to grow from them. So it's uncomfortable to look at. It's awful to see, but it's the truth. And I think our committee, that's where we want to be. We want to be living in the truth and not trying to hide anything, even the painful parts of our history. Does anyone else have any comments on this?
Not had her hand up.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
I agree with everything that Emma and Tiffany have said. And I think what makes this map really actually helpful and impactful is the fact that there are a lot of people who probably won't make the effort to look up the title because it takes some work and whatnot. And a lot of people who are in the middle of the road are who care about the issues but find excuses not to deal with it. I think the map is going to really hopefully motivate people by making it so easily to find out that they might be in the affected area. So I think it's a great solution, even though it is very painful. I think this is like the easiest way to get people to move and do stuff, because there people who are in this committee are probably going to check anyways, but it's it's others who might find reasons not to because they're busy or whatnot. And this is great, I think, for that reason.
Great, thank you, Nav. Steve, Berto.
Yeah, first off, to answer Elise's question, I thought the language was perfect, and appreciate what you and Heidi worked up. My only question about that is, in the intro statement, we link directly to the recorder homepage instead of their page on restrictive covenants. That may be a consideration to change the link so it goes directly to the restrictive covenants page.
Okay.
And yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. My sense is that maybe I wasn't looking at it as there would be much of a point of pain for this. I think it's for most of the people, if not all the people, I'll say most of the people that live in San Anselmo, if they found that and they got educated on restrictive covenants, they saw that where they live is on the map, that if they own the property, I would imagine more people are going to say, oh wait, let me fix this, rather than just be like, oh, they're painting me as a somebody who's intolerant or whatever. I have no problem with showing the map.
Great, thank you, Steve. Anybody else on the committee or in the room? Okay, do we have public comment? Dave? You're muted.
No one has their hand raised.
Oh, thank you, Elise, thank you. Okay, so then,
so you don't need to do anything with those comments. I'll just begin to start advertising the program and really promote that they're not legal too. I think we need to do at the same time. And hopefully more people will participate so we could fill in the map and learn more as we go into our housing element.
Great, thank you.
And to learn more about our community.
No, it's really great. You and Heidi have done an amazing job. And Heidi, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just one comment, Elise, when you're beginning that awareness development, I think it might be helpful to talk about how this is a positive, constructive step that people can take that will allow them to proactively signal that they find this reprehensible and they're willing to take action to make a difference. So it can be discussed or communicated as something that allows people to take a positive action and show of support too, if there's a way to do that.
Great, thank you, Heidi. Okay, any more comments? Okay, we are going to move to item number 6. This is the review content of request for proposal, the RFP for staff training and policy audit, and provide direction to staff. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at that? Okay, any comments? Nav?
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Last time, I think at the meeting, I said I had a chance to skim through it and I wanted to have a chance to look at it. So thank you, everyone. I had a chance to look at it and it looks great. So thank you for putting that together.
Thank you, Nav. Yeah. Anybody else?
I had a chance to look at it too and agree with Nav. I think staff did an excellent job at putting this together, and we appreciate all of their diligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, I agree. Thank you, staff. It was put together, put together very well, and just wonderful that our town's doing that. Anybody else? Okay, Steve.
Just a clarifying question here. I guess, do we need a vote on this?
You know, it wouldn't hurt. We're going to be taking it to council. It doesn't say it on it says provide direction to staff, and you've kind of said you like it, so that we don't really need to take a vote. We want to be able to say the RFP was recommended by the Racial Equity Ad Hoc Committee. I think we can say that now because you're all saying how much you like it, so I don't think a vote's necessary. I always hesitate to vote if we didn't say on the agenda we were going to do so.
Of course. I think then we should just ask, if anybody has any objections.
Okay.
Or reservations about any element of it.
Is anyone on the committee? Nope. Nope. I think we're all in accordance, in agreement. We're all for it. And yeah,
Great.
we're all for it. Thank you. Okay, so public comment for the RFP or?
No, there are no hands raised.
No hands raised? Okay, great. All right, thank you, Dave. We are going to move now to item number 7. Receive information on Spanish language translation for meetings and make recommendations to San Anselmo Town Council. So we had spoken about that, and then tonight we're having translation, which is great. And I don't know if everybody got to see how we get to come up with how we want to recommend or what we want to recommend to the town council. Elise, thank you so much for setting all of this up. So we have it for tonight. This is sort of a trial. And we need to ask if we would like it to be at all of our meetings, some of our meetings, and town council meetings. Is that correct, Elise?
Or we'd like to know from you, yeah, what you would like to have them at, and also because I think we do staff definitely support having them at public workshops where we're inviting people to attend. Of course, everyone's always invited to attend all of our meetings, but we wanted to hear from you as how much we provided you with the cost. Are you interested in having it for all of your meetings specifically or broadly for the community?
That's right. Yeah, and it's thank you for that. It's $115 per hour, and it's similar to the rate for an interpretation used by the County of Marin. So would we want to, oh, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to point out that on the agenda, and I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this or if it's just a glitch on my computer, when I click on the link for the staff report, it takes me to the district attorney letter.
Oh, weird.
So I'd want us to get that updated because I assume the cost, I've at least sent it to Alexis and myself, but I want to make sure that the public has access to see the cost information that you're discussing now.
Yeah, there was only one line in there, which is just there's an hourly rate. We have to have 2 for a meeting like this because there's so many people talking that they would be trading off in segments, like 20-minute segments. There's some glitches tonight. One of our interpreters, I don't think was able to connect to the interpretation service. So, but I think we do have one that's working. So we'll see how this works. It was good to have a trial run, but it would be an hourly rate. And this, so I guess just to say that it's available, but we don't have any budget for it this year. So it would be something we'd have to request the council to amend their agenda, or sorry, their budget to include.
So then I would ask, oh, Nav, go ahead.
Is there a way we can tell at all who is accessing? Is there a way we can measure if this is a program that we need because of who's, I mean, obviously it would be great to have it, but we also have to, determine what is the best avenue to spend costs and what's the most effective way. So can we test somehow who's accessing the recordings, if anyone at all?
Okay, Dave, can you answer
Oh,
that?
I didn't, I guess I was taking it a different way. So we can see who comes to these meetings, obviously. These meetings are, all of our, boards and commissions aren't super heavily attended. That's why Elise and I talked about it. And, we feel if we're going to be doing some kind of outreach production as far as our ongoing work, that we get translation done, translation, which is written translation, combined with anything we do that is sort of front-facing, public-facing, that we provide interpretation services at all of those meetings. When I was telling Elise, my 20 years in the canal, we used to have, obviously Spanish and Vietnamese simultaneous translation, but that was the audience. The audience was full of those people. In this case, I think I would go out on a limb and say staff would recommend that anything that we do in the future that is sort of public-facing should include it. We haven't really done that in the past. But, I have neighbors who are, some people speak Spanish and some speak both. So I talk to them through their young people, who do speak the English. So, that's sort of the way I see this. I think it's a great responsive act to be able to include people in times that we want to have larger public discussions. So that's kind of how I see us using it.
Okay, thank you. And Heidi, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I love Dave's expression of that. I think that's really comprehensive. My other thought is that sometimes people aren't aware of a service like this that would enable them to participate should they want to. So my second request would be, how can we make this more broadly known so that members of our community that would want to attend or make sure that they would follow up if it wasn't live, that they know that's an available resource.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So I think does that come sort of like with Nav's question, which is what I was thinking as well. How do we know who's going to tune in, and which makes it, practical financially? If we're going to request funds for something, we want to make sure that it's something that is going to work for the whole community and not just be, oh, we're just having it to have it, even though nobody's showing up. So if there's a way, sort of like Heidi said, we can, make it more broadly known and find out who wants to come to our meetings. So Alexis.
Thank you. Sorry, my connection is slow, so I'm actually gonna turn my video off while I speak, if that's all right. So just to kind of go on to that, I think it's hard because the town doesn't know how many people have not been participating because there hasn't been access. So it's not just a question of, how many people, like how do we figure out who's in the audience, but it's also kind of an unanswerable question. And then if you go down that road, there's also the question of, well, how many people, quote unquote, makes it worth it, which is sort of a tricky line to walk in terms of, making values-based decisions, making sort of aspirational decisions, and making decisions of how to spend money, how to spend funds. And so I guess that's just all to put that out there. As far as kind of live translation services, I think that any event, like any public workshop that is sort of an external facing thing the town does, it's really important to have the written media that accompanies or promotes it be offered in Spanish as well. And that could even be like through a QR code or just like a link or something. I mean, I don't know what the best practices are, but I've seen a number of things. But I think that's one way to signify to people, if there's a mailer that goes out, that it will be offered, and to make it more effective if everyone decides that this is something we should do.
Great, thank you, Alexis. Emma.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of echo what Alexis was saying as well. I feel kind of weird about this conversation because it feels like we're putting like a value on a language that most of us don't speak. We're all predominantly English speakers here. And that just doesn't feel right to me. And I would also like to add too that I think it would be very important to implement these interpretation services, whether it be simultaneously or releasing them later, like a day later, just as something that might be a little bit more manageable. But I also am of the belief that, like, if you build it, they will come. I feel like a large reason why we're probably not getting a lot of participation either within the meetings as they're live or maybe during the off times in the interwebs is because it's just not available. Like, how do we expect people who cannot, see the screen to understand the documents that are up on the screen? So I would like to encourage us to think even greater than just the Spanish interpretation, but also for our people who are deaf in our community to be able to have an interpretation or some access to the materials in a way that they can receive as well. And then the last thing I will add is that the price on this is also something that I want to touch on. I think that as the Racial Equity Committee, it is racial equity work to put the money into these services. That's literal equity coming into play. Even if no one shows up, we still have them available because that is what's equitable. The information getting out to everyone is equitable.
Thank you, Emma. Nav.
I'm sorry if I was misunderstood. I didn't mean to say that we should put a price on it. I just meant to say that we should evaluate whether we can spend the money in another way that would be more beneficial for the community. I wasn't trying to take something away in my proposal, but I did look at the statistics and it looks like this is, I'm sure, old, but it looks like the Latino Hispanic population is the second largest group of people living in this community in San Anselmo, and there's 700 plus individuals. So I think creating access to a resource for 700 plus individuals is definitely, I think, a really good call. I mean, I think my position, frankly, would have been different if there are like 3 or 4 people like in the community and, they comprise of 0.001%. I believe access is important, but I also believe that it should be prioritized so that the most people could be impacted by it. And given that the Hispanic Latino population is the second largest one in San Anselmo, with this probably old statistics here anyways, but it looks like there's a really good number. So I definitely, would support this. I think it's definitely access that they should have.
Thank you, Nav. How are we able to make our committee and meetings more broadly known and letting people know that these services are here so that it's not like a typical meeting where they show up and everyone's speaking English. And then also to Emma's point, I do believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, you, Dave and Steve and Alexis and Elise, that there is closed captioning for our Zoom meetings. Is that correct? And then, but if we're showing documents, I'm not certain how that would go for someone who is seeing impaired. So, Steve?
So there is closed captioning. If your settings are set to Spanish, it's going to be, or Vietnamese, whatever it may be, it's going to be captioned in that language. To Dave's point, I think, we had a situation in town during the pandemic with, a church, and the parishioners and the church itself are predominantly Spanish speaking. So in terms of communications, like when it comes to the recent mask mandate that came out, I think the town would be well served to translate those messages that have a broad, community impact and are critical to get out to everybody. And that's not to say that getting, information about our meetings and stuff is not critical. It's just there's so much more of a cost to doing that. If you're going to do it on an ongoing basis for everything, have everything translated. In my job as a public information officer for a municipal agency, I work so we have our own in-county people that'll do translation. But what happened was during the pandemic, there was so much need to translate so many different points of information because there was so much information coming out and it was changing every day that anybody outside of health services had to contract with outside vendors to do it. And so, I identified a few. There's one called Avant Page that a lot of us in where I work are using to do that, and they're very reasonable in price. If we had a basic message like mask mandates in San Anselmo are now mandatory, if it was just literally those lines, they have a minimum cost of $75 per document. But I think in those cases, spending a little bit of money for very important messages that we are responsible to make sure that our community members know is important to do. I certainly would support moving forward with translation-based services. I think it's, I think in a lot of ways if you build it, they will come. I know just by our, demographics for the town that compared to say San Rafael, we have a much lower percentage of our population that's unilingual, any other language speaker than English. So I know the town council will want to discuss the prudency and in our role as fiscal stewards of, do we create this, in years when, I'll be frank, our budget's tight, to be able to do that on an ongoing basis. So again, it's something that I'm in support of. I can't speak for the other council members, but we'd really have to take a hard look at the numbers and figure out what it would cost and how we could do it. But I think at the very, very least, for important public health and safety messages to get out, and even stuff having to do with tax increases and stuff like that, then I think we should be translating those documents and sending them out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. Alexis.
Thank you. So I will just add that in the work plan that was recently approved in the budget, there is a new position for a community engagement coordinator, which would be, I think, a 80% time person. And perhaps there could be a recommendation that maybe bilingual, like Spanish proficiency, is one of the criteria in that job posting that we're looking at. And maybe that could be something that maybe could come from the committee if the committee so chose, but I won't say what you should or shouldn't do. But that's just kind of something that's happening in town and is already in motion. And, certainly community engagement is what we're talking about right now.
Well, and I can speak to that since I'm carrying that ball. I think at the very least, the job of helping figure out how we move forward with multilingual information out of town would probably fall to this person to a great degree. There's lots of resources, like Steve mentioned, for us to tap into. For a small town, it's pretty hard, but since this position's coming online, having that built into the job description would be important as well. We don't have much in there regarding this piece, but it's community engagement. And that's exactly what we're talking about. So whether they speak Spanish or whether they're charged with making sure that is being considered in everything we do, those are great ideas.
Thank you, Alexis and Dave. And so this job that is being posted, there's already budget for that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and just something that could be added would be to have a person that was bilingual.
Yeah, to be added would be, they would be in charge of, what we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're bilingual or they're the ones in charge of gathering the resources. They wouldn't be at meetings, they wouldn't be interpreting themselves, but they would certainly be, it would be helpful if they were, if they did speak Spanish as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Okay, but not for a translator for our meetings, correct? Okay, thank you. Steve. Oh, you're muted.
clarify on that, you know, there are different parts of a job notice, right? And the most important part are the MQs, the minimum qualifications. So then there are other things that are, you know, highly desirable candidates will have these qualities. So are we talking about adding this to the MQs, or are we talking about adding this to additional qualities that are desirable?
That second one, additional qualities that are desirable.
Heidi.
Yeah, just so I understand clearly, I love the idea of this being one of the responsibilities of that new hire. Are you suggesting that the ability to be multilingual is a desirable thing, yet the requirement would still be within the job to be sharing information at a minimum in Spanish? Or are you talking about, yeah, I'm just looking for clarity on that. Thanks.
So if that's in response to my question, Heidi, good question. I think it's the distinction of, is being bilingual a requirement to having the job, or is it just another element that, you know, makes you rise to the top as a candidate? I think, as we've discussed here, this position, whether they are bilingual or not, are going to be tasked with figuring this element out. Again, it would be highly desirable that they were bilingual, and when we have to go and get a public health and safety or safety message out to the community, they can draft it themselves. But, you know, at the very minimum, they're going to be tasked with figuring out how we do communicate in those realms, both in the you know, health and safety instances where we have to get messaging out, and also on an everyday basis in how we operate as a town. Is that correct, Dave?
Yep, you nailed it.
That's great. Yeah, I'm very much in support of having this be a component of their responsibility.
Thank you, Heidi. And thank you for the clarification, Steve and Dave. Does anyone else have any comments? Anything to add, or do we have any public comment?
I don't see any hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay. Okay, so committee, would you like to decide if we want this to be a desired quality or a requirement tonight, or would you like to put it on the agenda for next month? We can, you know, figure out more how it works, how the hiring works, all of that. What are your thoughts?
This is really about Spanish interpretation. We're not really talking about this position in this forum, but you're giving me great feedback for it. What we're talking about is, we feel like, from Frank's comment at our last meeting, we wanted to be responsive and try to look into what that need really looks like, you know, and kind of start, you know, shifting towards, you know, being as responsive to that part of our community as we can. And I think the beginning of that is providing the opportunity for people to hear what's being said in the language that's native to them. And whether that's these meetings or whether that's other things, because the next item we're going to talk about is this brainstorming of what this group wants to do ongoing. And I think a lot of that's going to be public facing. And, you know, so I think it's going to be important, you know, in addition to, but also for sure, that we are making efforts to include folks who are monolingual Spanish.
Yeah, thank you for course correcting me. Yeah, that's right. It just seems like they can kind of go hand in hand when we're talking about translator and just knowing now this new information about a new position.
Yeah.
So, Nav?
Can we make a motion then? Can we just make a motion to recommend to the San Anselmo Town Council to have a Spanish language translator at every meeting?
How do you want to make, does anyone want to second Nav's motion?
I'm not sure how we would do this. I mean, because it sounds like we were asked, or this was on our agenda. So what would be the takeaway? Would we be recommending something at this point? Sorry, it's just more of a procedural question.
we would be recommending to the town council, basically asking for the money because this isn't in the budget. So asking for the money for them to pay for a translator or 2 translators that we're learning for our meetings.
Okay, I'd motion
Or-
to, I'd
oh.
motion to make such a recommendation.
Okay, pardon, let me just say one more quick thing, sorry, and or just for, or we could do it for town workshops. And what was the other one? Sorry, Elise has it, it's town workshops, our meetings, and was it also for town council meetings, Elise? I can't remember.
I mean, you can offer your opinion on that.
Okay, on all of it. So yeah, so thank you. Town council meetings, our meetings, town workshops, all of the above, or for right now, just our meetings.
I mean, I think having access is very important, as we discussed, and given the number of people impacted, I think we should just make I would make a recommendation and a motion to recommend for all, and then have the city council decide if they have the funding for all.
Okay,
I second that motion.
great. Thank you, Nav, and thank you, Emma. Heidi.
I was going to provide a second, but Emma did, so.
Okay, right. And then there was no public. Does everybody need to give their yes here?
Yeah, why don't we do a roll call vote?
Okay. Nav,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Emma,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Okay. All right, so that'll go to the council. And so now, as Dave said, our agenda item 8, this is our brainstorming session on additional opportunities to examine and or address racial equity, social justice, systemic racial bias, and diversity issues that are within the town's control. So I think so we've kind of started it about the new job position. Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to bring up? Ideas, thoughts?
Just brainstorming. I know that we've in the past mentioned opportunities where we could have listening sessions. Maybe it's just a time whereby a few committee members are available to meet with folks if they'd like. We can also provide maybe some one-on-one sessions and make those available to people if people don't feel comfortable sharing their points of view in a public setting. Maybe a few of us could put aside some time, let people know they can, give us a call or Zoom us or whatever, media that we want to use so that they could share their perspectives with us and their experiences of living in the town or what their ideas about making it more inclusive.
But does it have to be public because of the Brown Act?
That's my understanding. I think it has to be public if the majority of our committee members are present. If we just provide an opportunity for people to speak with a committee member and there's kind of a sign up opportunity, a window of time, then those can be done on an individual basis. Dave or somebody in town, please correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I was going to say, Heidi, way to go. That is some good Brown Act knowledge there. Somebody read their material.
Yeah.
Somebody did it for 4 years. Yeah.
Well, years ago, there was an effort by the council, this was probably 12 years ago, to have like the council member is in like Charlie Brown out in the front of the town hall on the weekend, where a couple of council members would sit there and they would be available for any question, And I thought it was a great idea. And, it was more of a social hour than anything. I don't think there was a lot of people. I think that if they wanted to get an answer, they'd call staff. But, that's sort of what I'm hearing you say, is having a sort of a safe and easy way for people to come and talk to members of the committee about whatever's on their mind. Is that kind of what you're characterizing?
Yeah, it is. And I think those two things can be separated, safe and easy, because some people will want the ease of use and other people will want the safety of the conversation. So, but yeah, in general, making that an available time for people. I don't know whether there'll be kind of a take up of that initially, or whether it would be something that people would have to grow used to the idea, and then they'd be more likely to. It's hard to predict that, but again, making it known within the community that we're going to start doing that, and we consider that part of our opportunity and responsibility as a committee to listen to people that we're representing in this town, might be a good idea.
Okay, oh wait, Larry, you had your hand up, and then
I just had a different topic. So I think when we finish this.
okay, I'll circle back. Emma, and then
Thank you.
Nav. Mhm.
I think that we do need the space for these coming togethers, whether it's individually with community members, but I would advocate for that we actually need to build a community foundation. And we kind of started that last week when we gathered at Memorial Park. A large number of community members, I think much more than I was expecting, showed up, and it gave me this real feeling of community where I could look out and I could go, oh, I'm not alone. And so I would advocate for that in having more kind of deformalized, destructured community events where we could call it something like Equity Hour. Once a month, we will meet in this place in downtown as a community where it will be an open forum for anyone to come forth and to speak on issues in the town, or like if there's members of the community who are activists and have their own issues that they're fighting for, to bring that forth, just as a way for us to really come together, because I think that that is what we're missing right now from these meetings, is the community foundation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Emma. And Nav.
I'm sorry, I was mute. I think you hit on a key spot. And I think if like one thing the committee could accomplish, at least in my opinion, having increased, engagement from the community on these important issues and getting them involved with ideas would be huge. My only concern is how to do it so people will actually show up, because, so I would recommend, if anyone is interested, to actually maybe have like a brainstorming session with a small group about how to actually figure out how to actually promote something like this, or make it so that people who don't already know about stuff like this, or who are not already part of like the activist community, would know about this and would learn about it, especially maybe somehow figuring out a way how to target, the individuals who are probably going to, who we're here to kind of help create a more inclusive town for. So yeah, those are my 2 cents. If anyone wants to be involved in a group, maybe a brainstorming group on this, that'd be cool.
Okay, thank you, Nav. Dave.
So Nav just hit on exactly what I've been thinking is, once we kind of get through, and I think there's going to be a lot of these ideas that bubble up in the next couple of months. I think we need to capture them and, kind of really let them, take some shape. And how we can do that is by developing subcommittees. So you can have up to 3 people working on any of these as a subcommittee that you can meet without having to deal with Brown Act, and then come back at the next meeting with some of that thought out framework to share with the committee. So, the way I look at it is that we kind of take this time to put these things down on paper. I think everybody's got some great ideas. And now circling back to something you said, maybe at the first meeting, you talked about kind of having an online toolkit where there's resources for folks. And, I could see this, this place where if somebody wanted to meet with have a button saying, do you want to meet with one of the racial equity people? And you could set something up. So, I think that is another thing. What do we have online for people, and how do we make it accessible and, in the proper languages? So as we move through this, just keep in mind that each of these ideas that everybody gets excited about, we can put these subcommittees together to get them working. And then all of this is going to end up being what we end up presenting to the council about how we think this committee could continue doing work after the initial 1 year. So that's kind of the framework of what, like I said last time, this is what we're going to do for the next 7-8 months, is kind of come up with these exciting, kind of things that we think would be great for our community, give them some sort of build them up, and and then we're going to be able to go to council saying, here's a dozen things we think we could do on an ongoing basis if this becomes a standing meeting. And that's so what you just described is a perfect example of that.
Sorry,
Thank
just a
you.
correction. The toolkit was Larry's idea. Just didn't want to steal someone else's idea here.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or thoughts?
So I was just going to add, I think we talked a little bit about this before, but the idea, of reaching out to different organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce or to realtors or things like that to sort of get their input. On what they think might be a way to be more inclusive. And so I thought that, that seems like something that might be worthwhile to do.
Meaning that like we have a listening session?
Or maybe what Dave was talking about in terms of like, put together a committee of people who interface with our committee and other community or business organizations to solicit information from them relative to what they think about diversity issues, and maybe if there's some obstacles that we can identify that would be helpful to us as a committee, I think, in deciding, if there's anything we can do as a community to do better outreach or that kind of stuff. So it's just an idea.
Just to clarify, when I was talking about subcommittees, of which this would be a great one, that's you guys. That's up to 3 of each of you. So, let's say Larry's idea, as it percolates, we're going to reach out to the institutions, the schools, the chamber, whoever, and we're going to interview them. We're going to say, where are the issues where you see them, and how can we help, kind of as in your role, how can we help affect those? So there wasn't a separate committee. It would be one of these subcommittees, of which we'll have a few.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Dave.
I love the idea.
Does anybody else have any thoughts? Nav?
Can we do anything to like promote diverse businesses in the community? Is there anything, I don't know if it's within like our area, but to support businesses or companies owned by people of color? I just feel like it's like, this is a white community that's very white, and I just feel like, I don't know how we could do it, but if there's something we could do, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think businesses with people of color, BIPOC, I think they would be able to give us more information probably than the Chamber of Commerce, more about their experiences with realtors and Chamber of Commerce, because that's just my opinion. That's my opinion. I think that it would come from what is needed. And I don't think, I think it's probably better to hear what is needed rather than, because there are blind spots for businesses and people. And so if they're not experiencing what people of color are experiencing, it would be probably challenging to find out what they think is needed, because the perspectives are going to be completely different. So I like the idea of finding out about the businesses. Nav? Mm-hmm.
There are not a lot of businesses here owned by people of color, but I know a couple. Is it going to be weird for me to just, can we just individually go up and talk about these issues with them? No? Is that fine? Are we permitted to?
Yeah,
Of course you are, but
that's your job. You're representing the community.
Exactly. Our Economic Development Committee, they're out talking to business owners all the time about different things. But this could also be, I know Fairfax might be trying to look into this specific topic. So I wonder what other communities, because minority-owned businesses, people of color owned businesses, is sort of top of mind in all of the racial equity work around the country. So I think rather than us trying to make it up, we should probably do a little homework and see what's been effective. We have a unique, being a small town, it's very different than a community with the different industries and things like that. But I think, starting to talk with those that and say, what were your what were your barriers to coming? Why'd you choose San Anselmo is a big question, and what have you experienced, and how could we live in the world of policy. You can talk to Steve and Alexis about that. So we have the we have the opportunity to make the laws and rules, and that's kind of where we can have the biggest impact.
Great. Thank you, Nav and Dave. Heidi, you have your hand up, and then you're next, Steve.
Yeah, I think too that there are quite a number of BIPOC organizations, companies, small entrepreneurial outfits that don't have storefronts here in the town or even in Marin County. People who have small businesses, whether it's tree trimming or landscaping or providing, kind of specialty meals, whatever they are. I'm curious about using some of our other, or working together with some of our other community resources like the Chamber of Commerce and our Economic Development Group, because they're going to have hopefully a good starting point for who those, what those organizations are, whether they're retail facing storefronts or whether they're individuals who are registered with the Chamber, or simply understanding who are service providers and business for themselves within our community that we would want to include in these conversations.
That's a good idea. Thank you, Heidi. And Steve, you're next.
Yeah, and this is a perfect kind of dovetail with what Heidi was just talking about, because I agree. I mean, there are a lot of people who may not have a storefront that they run their business out of their home. And I know we do have quite a few people who do that, even more so after last year in the pandemic. And but I don't think this is searching for a needle in a haystack. We do have quite a few business owners in town that are people of color. Jackie Bontai, Frank, Fernando, the owners of Orin. There are, quite a few in town. So I think partnering with the EDC to kind of locate, where those businesses are for this committee, and then having your own kind of outreach element would be a really good thing.
Thank you, Steve. Heidi, do you have your hand up again?
No, I just failed to take it down. Thanks.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure. No, that's great. Does anyone else have any comments? Alexis.
Yeah, back at the May meeting, there was discussion about a letter regarding some of the, I guess it was save the name signs, and it was sent by Shannon Mahoney. And she lives in town, and she actually started an organization that provides $5,000 grants to Black-owned businesses around the Bay Area. And it's called Allies of the Black Community. And she might be a good person to reach out to. And I think probably everyone has her email because she had, previously been corresponding with the committee.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. Anybody else have any comments? Any public comments?
No hands are raised.
No hands are raised. Okay. Nav.
I was going to say at the initial meeting, I had an idea of doing some sort of a diversity book list for the library or an inclusive book list, but it's pretty cool because I've been reading up on what the library's been doing. They have such an inclusive book list and they have a whole book club. So I've scratched that idea off my list. Just wanted to let everyone know.
You missed it, Nav, because Larry brought in his book today for us to read. So yeah. Okay. Does anyone, Nav, did you want to, I'm not sure, does this happen here where she can make a subcommittee, or can that happen after the meeting if she would like to do that regarding agenda item 8?
I feel, I'm okay either way. My opinion is we should probably get the, kind of let this work germinate and get better framework around it before we jump into doing any of it. I think the doing of it's going to be, the long-term work. But I feel like if we can come back, I think I've captured kind of that. So I have the creating space for community building. This was I think this was Emma's, an equity hour open forum, something along those lines where we can go out and have an opportunity to have a topic or something along those lines. So that's something that would have a subcommittee for it. Then there was the institutional outreach, where there's a subcommittee that goes out and talks to different sort of institutions like the chamber, potentially the school district, things like that, to find out what are their issues and how we can partner with them. That was something I think Larry said. Then we had the support the minority-owned businesses. I don't know if that's a proper term anymore, but that's what they're using in Fairfax. So BIPOC-owned businesses and Shannon Mahoney's project, that could be something that the subcommittee could work with. And then I wrote down the diversity inclusive book list just because I think that's something that we can maybe encourage and support, even though it's already happening. It's nice that, we could, Linda's one of your staff liaisons, and she's wonderful. So I don't want to even though it's happening, maybe it's something that can kind of be connected with this group. Did I miss any?
Did you get the one I had that I didn't hear you say, but you might have said it. It's part of sort of increasing engagement was providing a safe and easy opportunity.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Community members to provide comments to the Racial Equity Committee.
Yeah. Safe and easy connections, we'll just say, for residents. So right there, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pretty solid things. I think honestly, I think that's just the beginning. It's what everybody came up with today. I don't think we need to, you can shoot me down, but I don't think we need to start. I think these each need a little bit more fine tuning. So one thing that could happen would be that we could, at our next meeting, create the subcommittees, bring these back a little more formed, have more discussion about them. Maybe if there's some that get added before we start getting, I think for you to commit to something, I think it's important that we all really understand what the goal is. So we can try to put some meat on these bones, even with the people that kind of gave these. We can maybe reach out to you guys and, put a little more of a descriptor on them and, a little more framework to them. And then at our next meeting, we'll have a good list. And I think we continue to have these sort of brainstorm sessions. And if we feel like this is enough, then next meeting, we can take these 5 and assign 3 people to each of them and, and get moving on kind of building them out and start making basically an action plan for each one. But I think it might be a little early to do that this meeting. That's just my opinion.
Heidi, thank you, Dave. Heidi.
I just wanted to say I'd be happy to work on kind of solidifying these and turning them into actionable descriptions. So if whoever wants to reach out to me, it sounds like we have kind of 5 target groups that we would want to put together, and then defining maybe what their agendas are and outcomes that we'd want for them, so that our members can decide which ones they want to participate in once they know more about it.
Heidi, that is such a wonderful offer. I think staff can work with you on that. So in preparation for the September meeting, we can actually get a little more beefed up information out for consideration and for the subcommittee work and all that. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
And if you need help with that, Heidi, I'm happy to help you too.
Hey, a subcommittee.
Hey, right there.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi and Larry. Okay, so does everyone agree to put this as a future agenda item for next month? Larry,
Yes.
Heidi,
Sorry, I'm finding my unmute button. Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Nav,
Yes.
Emma,
Yes.
okay, myself, yes. Okay, so do we, Steve?
Oh, we were moving. I thought we were moving on.
Yeah, we're moving on. Okay. We're at future agenda items, so that's this. So any,
I had a question about.
oh, okay, go ahead. Mhm.
So I'm wondering, and it's kind of a conditional question, right? Because if, and I'll defer to staff here, if they feel it's appropriate for open time, because this wasn't on the agenda, then we should do this in open time. If not, then I would probably think it'd be a good idea to receive an update at the next meeting about what happened at Memorial Park last week, and the steps that staff took. I know that council got an email from staff about what was done to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and that kind of stuff. But I think it would be important for this committee to hear that update as well, whether that happens at this meeting or if because of Brown Act rules, we can't do that until the next meeting. You know, I think it would be important for this group to hear that discussion.
Agreed. And so I think, yeah, agreed.
I don't think there's any reason that we can't go over that right now. It's really just a factual recounting of what happened. I don't think it needs to be. I think we need to get our agendas. We're going along. We're doing long agendas here. So would you just want to sort of me to walk through how things went, Steve? Is that what you're thinking, or?
Yeah, I think talking about when you found out about it, and what steps you took afterwards, I think that would be good.
Okay, so I can't remember, was it Monday? Quite frankly, I don't have the date in front of me. I believe it was.
Monday, July 26th.
Monday, right? Yeah, okay. So we received a report from a couple of folks that came into the rec department that there was these 4 numbers put on the scoreboard, and that they are known anti-Semitic. It's a known anti-Semitic message. And Greg went down, our supervisor and our director of community services went down and saw the letters and took them down immediately, put them in a locked storage area we have there, and contacted me, and I contacted the Central Marin Police Authority, who came down and took a report. I think simultaneously, I don't remember when I wrote a letter, an email notifying the council that this had taken place. And the IJ got noticed really early about it. I think the people that reported might have called them. So we fully disclosed what happened to them. And so there was I think that night there was an article outlining what happened. And as I said, the police took a report, and unfortunately there's no cameras in the area, so we didn't have any really investigative sort of tools to help us with. But at same thing that night, Councilmember Berto put a call out for a community gathering. I think initially a general call out and promised news to come later, and then very shortly thereafter had a date and a time and a place, and started spreading the word. And those of us that showed up to that, which was really an organic sort of call out of a response, I'm still amazed at how wonderful that gathering was. And I think maybe Emma said it, but I thought it was really something that made me feel good about our community, because there's a lot of people there. And then those that spoke really well. Nav, you were fantastic. It was just really, really wonderful to have you there. So that's it. You know, when these things happen, we certainly take them seriously, as we say. And it's unfortunate that there's nothing. We with Gerald Welty, it was obvious who it was. He said his name. In this situation, it's much more clandestine. But I think what Steve put together is sort of a template for how San Anselmo's going to handle these things. I think it was wonderful, and I think we'll have more people next time, because we can't tolerate it. So that's really how it went down, and how I think it would continue to. I know that this group was invited via email by me. I know a lot of you are out of town, but I saw a couple of you there. I know Nav, being a young mom, came in and was able to provide that wonderful speech. I know Brian was very pleased to be able to be there. And Ford Green even jumped in. He was inspired. I was sitting next to him, and it's just, there was an energy there that was really special, really special. So I don't know if Steve, you wanted to.
I think that's a great synopsis, Dave. And I want to say that I appreciate everything that, we have a really responsive staff. And when this happened, they're right on it, that's a good feeling. couple of things that really stood out to me about the event. I didn't, I have an organizing background, and this was born out of nothing else than sheer frustration. And especially after the, incident concerning our mayor. And, there was a lot, certainly the newspaper does their story. There's a lot on social media. Everybody's talking, it's on Nextdoor. I can't just sit around and be behind a keyboard. And I think it was important for us to stand together as a community. So, normally I would like to, have built the foundation and have the phone tree in place and all of that stuff. But this was just like, hey, I'm gonna be there. And if y'all want to come join me. I was blown away by how many people came. I did not know if anybody was going to show up. I think particularly the number of people of color who came out. I live by the Marin Housing Authority properties, and I'm always staying in touch with the people down there. And I've invited, a number of them to come on down, and they did. And, I saw people of color from other communities that were not in San Anselmo that had come down. And I think what we effectively did was, we took the site of, a hateful act, and we turned it into a symbol of community and inclusion. And that's what, really, made me feel good about our town, about, everything this committee is doing. And Nav, you were lights out there. You were awesome. And I'll say that, when the first person I called or contacted when I was doing this was Tiffany, because, I thought as the chair of the committee, she would be a good person to have speak there. I had originally told her I was looking at Wednesday or Friday. As I started to put the word out, people were like, Thursday would be the best day for me. So we made the decision to do it on Thursday, and that meant that Tiffany couldn't be there, but we know she was there with us in spirit. Larry was there. Emma was there. I know Heidi said she was out of town, but it was really so amazing. I was just blown away by how we showed up, and we have to continue to show up, because the thing that was, the Brian thing, while we know who did it, it was a very scary thing, because, there were weapons. There's a proximity there. There was somebody who had on multiple occasions said, I'm going to make this phone call and leave this message. And they had the means to back up what they said, they were going to do. This was scary, but for a completely different set of reasons. Like, this wasn't like somebody painting a swastika on the scoreboard. This was a very nuanced message. As Dave used the word clandestine. That's the perfect word to use. And what worries me is that those numbers, it's a signal. It's saying, hey, we're in this community. So, hey, if you feel the way we do, know that your support is here, which is why, I really thought it was important that we need to gather at that site and say, nope, not here, not today. And, yeah, I'm still blown away about how many people showed up and how great that was. And it was really an opportunity, because we all feel the same way when we see something like that happen, or we hear about what happened to Brian. This was an opportunity to heal together too. And yeah, I was pleased with how many people showed up. And I think, like Dave said, this is the type of reaction we look for when these things happen. I'll shut up with that.
Thank you, everybody, for being there and for setting that up, Steve. Yeah, I saw pictures. It was really, really beautiful. Nav, excuse me, Nav.
Yeah, I just want to thank the town and Steve and Dave. You guys were so fast, and I think that your action speaks volumes here. I also wanted to see if we can use this as an opportunity to maybe figure out like a way that we can also release statements quickly. Is there a way where perhaps, I know we have on our website, there's like a racial equity, like our web page, the San Anselmo one has the racial equity ad hoc committee page. Is it possible to, for example, have like access to somebody to posting things? Like, for example, maybe when horrendous things happen or offensive things happen, maybe we can have like the first person who's going to write a statement and say like, this is a statement, and we can make it from a member until we have time to solidify. Because I feel like sometimes our meetings are every month and it really delays a response. And like just seeing a response from, I thought it was great to see this informal meeting that you guys have created, and it was amazing to be there. But I think formally also like putting out a statement, it doesn't have to be approved by the whole committee because we might not have time.
Right.
But I feel like it speaks volumes being prompt, and when such action is, taken, maybe having like, delegating the task to one person saying, hey, you're going to be the first person who, when you hear about it, you write something up, or, you get notified. And then if you're not available because, you're getting married, having a kid, or, something crazy is happening, then there's a second person in line who is going to jump in and make a statement of some sort. And they can circulate the statement by the committee and say, look, we got to post this up in the next 24 or 48 hours. Please chime in. And I know there's a Brown Act requirement, so maybe we can like minimize the group that's going to be working on the statements that we release promptly.
There was a statement Heidi submitted.
Oh,
yeah, and we sent it to the Marin IJ as well. And the only reason it'll be delayed is because we sent it as a letter to the editor. It takes time.
How did I miss that? Oh my God. And here I am talking about a statement, Heidi, that's amazing. But also, can we make it public? Can we put it on our website somehow and have like statements released condemning this action, like putting Heidi's statement as like, here's a statement from the committee?
I think that's a great idea. Steve.
Yeah, I think, and I agree with, the point of Nav's question here, which is that with only meeting once a month, it's hard to be able to scramble and do these things. I think that's where we, entrust, our faith in our chair, and, being the, head of this body. I think Tiffany is, would be the person to issue the statement. And if we feel comfortable in entrusting her, knowing that, when these things happen, she can work with staff to get a statement out on behalf of the committee, I think that would be great. And the other thing I wanted to say was that, what's again, there wasn't a lot of organization there. This was just like, hey, I'm going to be there. If you want to show up, show up. And I struggle with that sometimes, because I realize as a white man, I'm probably not the best voice or the best messenger to organize that, right? But at the same time, I don't want to sit around and wait for someone to do it, which is why I just kind of said, hey, look, I'm going to figure this out. I talked to the mayor. I wanted to make sure he would be able to be there, because I want us to be, as a town, showing an inclusive, environment, putting forth an inclusive environment. And it's why I also contact Tiffany immediately. And so I struggle with that, right? Because, I realize that, as a white man, I'm probably not the best voice. And at the same time, I also don't just want to sit back and wait for somebody else to do anything, for that same reason that Nav is asking about this, with the time in between our meetings, to when can we really address this? I thought about when the thing with Brian happened and some of the comments that were made at this committee, like, why couldn't we act quicker? And that was very loud in my head. So I think, entrusting our chair here and entrusting this committee to kind of work with staff and do that stuff. And I'm always willing to support. And if I need to lead it, I'll lead it, but I realize I may not always be the best voice.
I'll just take count of that. Thank you, Steve. But I think you showed like a great example of allyship and stepping up in the community where maybe, excuse me, other white males, as you're saying, wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. And you're the example leading the way. And so I think, thank you for that. And I think that worked out. And so, and you included all of us, and, those, who could, did what they could. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. Any other comments? Nav.
Sorry, keep doing what you're doing, Steve. I think you're a great ally. You don't have to say you're not the best person for this job. I mean,
Thank you.
you're great. And so Larry actually is a civil rights lawyer who defends a lot of, well, not defense, but who represents a lot of Black men and women and women in horrific cases. You know, he's taken up that role, and we do have to face that question of like, well, you have a white attorney, and I have to say, at the end of the day, you're standing up for someone's rights, and that means a lot. Doesn't matter who you are.
Agreed.
Well, I will say this, one of my clients called me the white Johnny Cochran. So
Hey.
Does anyone have anything else?
Just quickly, I don't know what the protocol is for posting things on our section of the website. I'm happy to provide that letter. I don't know if it'll be published or not, but the person that we contacted seemed to indicate interest. Said there would be a 6 to 9 day delay, and that's why perhaps we haven't seen anything. But if we're okay posting it on our website, I did submit it along with Tiffany as individuals as opposed to representing our committee because of requirements around limitations on that. But happy to do that if the group would like to do that.
Yeah, I would. Everybody else, Nav?
Yeah, I mean, I just by example, Mountain View has like they release statements from their committee whenever some like horrible stuff happens, and that's why I thought of that idea. It would be awesome if we can get your statement up too.
Okay, well, I'll just send it. What's the best point of contact? Elise, would that be you? Sorry.
If you could copy Elise and Linda, and we can create a link on the website for those types of statements. They'll just
Sure.
title for.
Dave, is it possible that these things that we do, can they go on the town newsletter?
I'd have to sort of a case by case. I think, depending on what they are, certainly. I don't know what this one says, but we could certainly release something if it's from the group. Absolutely. Yeah. I think
that was on
I don't know about posting individuals things like for letters to the editor, but if there's statement, yeah.
No, that's what I was talking about, like a statement from our committee, because after that, like on Saturday, there was no mention of what happened at Memorial Park, and I just think it's important that for people who don't know what happened, that they do know, because there are people that I shared with, even my neighbors, that had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it got a lot of press coverage in the IJ, but we could absolutely, especially if we have something that if you're going to come out, it would be smart. I like you already kind of have it figured out that the chair will release some for a statement that absolutely could go in the newsletter.
Okay, awesome.
That kind of stuff is perfect for that. So
okay, great.
Let's hope we don't have to do these too often.
Yeah, hopefully we're good. Okay, anyone else? Nope. Okay, so that was our future agenda items. That was item number 9. So we are going to agenda item 10 to open up for time for public expression.
I see no hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay. Then agenda number 11. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and for all your hard work.
Thank you, guys.
Great
thank you,
ideas.
Tiffany.
And thank you
Welcome.
both the interpreters. I know it was.
Oh,
we had a little-
gracias. Muchas gracias.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It was good practice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for setting that up, Elise. Thank you.
Hopefully we could try it again.
For sure. Have a great weekend, everybody, or great week.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone, and take care.
Good night.